So a lot of people have made it abundantly clear that they don't like Zenless Zone Zero. In fact, some even hate it. To the point where they already quit. To the point where literal friendships have been ruined, bridges burnt, because for some people, this silly old game is more important than real life.
There's bigger shit going on in the fucking world than
Zenless Zone Zero. But either way, seeing this many people hate on the game means that there has to be some sort of problem with the game. And I saw a lot of people complaining about how there was no open world or exploration, like Genshin or Wuthering Waves. How the combat was too easy or not in-depth enough, like Wuthering Waves. Some even say Genshin's combat is more in-depth, which is debatable, I guess. Some just think the story is really bad, but in reality that's just a matter of preference. And others just don't know what's wrong with the game, they just don't like it. But I think that in essence there's actually one main problem with the game that isn't really related to preference, and that is the pacing of the game. Now, by pacing, I mean the way the game or the story progresses. If it feels rushed or just too slow, or if there's a system in place that just completely takes you out of the game. Yup, let's just address the elephant in the room, the TV system. And yes, it is a problem that a lot of people do mention, but I don't think people have gone in depth to why it actually is that bad. Huge disclaimer, by the way, I actually don't mind them, but I do believe that objectively speaking, they present a big problem in the game. Let's just get into why that is. I feel like this is a good representation of how Zenless Zone Zero flows. Get a cutscene, you go into the TV system, you fight. Get another cutscene, go into the TV system and fight again. And sometimes there just aren't any cutscenes in between. And it's just fight TV system, fight TV system. And well, for a lot of people, it's just undeniably a pace breaker for them. And despite people heavily criticizing it in the closed beta tests, they removed 80% of them, which is shocking. And it's still a problem for the entire community. Yes, the system is that hated. Crazy how they didn't see that as a huge red flag, but whatever. And the reason this universally hated system is still in the game is to somehow give you the feel that you're actually exploring the world of Zenless Zone Zero as sort of a transition between scenes. However, it's just a very poor way of accomplishing that. Because all you see is a moving background with a lot of TVs, which you can move through and do some puzzles, but a lot of the time it's just, let's be honest, pretty much stuff made for 5-year-olds. So even puzzle enjoyers don't really have any amount of fun while doing them. But I also happen to notice something very important as far as Zenless Zone Zero's puzzle system, aka the TV system, and other gacha games like Honkai Star Rail or Wuthering Waves go. Let's take Genshin Impact for example. The puzzles in that game are in the open world. You can do them if you want. Sure, obviously there are some outliers and exceptions to the rule, but in general, it's your choice. I'll be honest, I skip them because I'm tired of doing them, which means I don't get bothered by them. However, in Zenless Zone Zero, you have to do the puzzle. You can't back out. It's mandatory. If you want to progress, you gotta do them, man. Sure, you can at least speed them up, but there's no way to skip them. And I feel like that's the main difference between the two. That's the big problem people have with the TV system, at least subconsciously, I'd say. If they don't want to do some silly puzzle and continue on with the story without just completely breaking the pace of the game, then don't make them do it. It's actually that simple. I feel like Hoyoverse messed up big time, losing a lot of players because they just didn't want to let go of this system, at least in the story. So I don't know how much developing this system actually cost, but the thing is, they couldn't predict the amount of players that have quit over this one dumb mechanic. They just couldn't understand the fact that sometimes less is more. Thus, they have legit lost money by spending money. It's so dumb.
I don't spend money.
And honestly, the best thing you can say about the entire thing is the animations, like the entire game. It's just really fluid and good looking. But clearly that's not good enough to make a system good. Because people want that system out of there. People want longer instances of combat because the cutscenes are already long enough, let's be honest. No one's complaining about that. I hate yapfests. But this game is marketed clearly as a combat game by fucking the Way himself.
我在想啊，绝区林主打的体验是战斗，那是不是意味着我们可以期待更高规格的关卡呢？
没问题，
Like, you can't make this stuff up. And so there are a lot of players going into this game expecting to fight all the time with no such system in mind. And then after getting bombarded by them, you just uninstall the game, because that's what happens when you don't have Genshin player copium. But some people hate the system so much to the point where they just say 90% of the game is TVs, which is just blatantly wrong, by the way. I'd say it's pretty similarly divided between the combat and the TV system, but obviously the more people hate something, the more they exaggerate it. An interesting thing I did find was that people did like the TV system in the end game, like Hollow Zero, which is basically like the simulated universe from Honkai Star Rail. And I'll be 100% honest, I don't enjoy the navigation in the simulated universe. All you do is just go through portals and interact with large walls of text. It gets repetitive really fast. But here, it's actually enjoyable. It's executed really well. The way everything being laid out as it is, the shops, the items you can get, the puzzles, it feels like there's a genuine point to them there. And the puzzles at that point are actually fun to do. There's actually something you need to think about while doing them. However, the way they did it in the story is really strange. They have these icons of the characters just leaving your party, like some level screen from Mario or something, I don't even know. But the main thing people had a problem with was the way they told the story using the train in the TV system, where you had to change the tracks to get the train to stop. And everyone is just like, man, why didn't you just, spend some money to actually animate this like literally every other game? Instead of just showing nothing and having dialogue boxes appear like fucking Sonic Forces or some shit. And so with the universal complaint out of the way, I do believe a lot of people would be able to overlook some of the other shortcomings of the game, like the combat being a bit on the easier side and there being no real open world to explore. Because that's actually really similar to what Honkai Star Rail is. The only hard content where you actually have to sweat is the end game, and I think that would actually work pretty well here as well. And all in all, I just think that Hoyoverse should probably remove the entire TV system from the story and keep it in the end game. Stop being such greedy corpos. Spend some money actually animating some cutscenes instead, and I believe that everyone would be happy with a change like that. But since it's Hoyoverse,
You are a fool if you think they're gonna listen to your fucking complaint.
and even if they do, people are still gonna hate it because the gacha community is filled with a bunch of idiots that think that their game.
To be the only motherfucker getting praise.
But hey, that's just my opinion. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments below. Also, please subscribe because, I don't know, Stjorg has more than me. Only quality content here, folks. Subscribe, please.